Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Dewan here at the Region Sports Network, and I am here coming to you live from Centier Bank Studio. It is Region Football Weekly, officially going into Week 8, Thursday night. It's best time of the week, just about Friday Eve, and I'm here with the one and the only Jay Simmons. Jay, how are we doing today, my friend?
Good, Mike. We're looking forward to Week 8 and, getting ready for some sectional action as well coming up soon.
Yeah, we're going to talk about sectionals maybe a little bit later, but 7 weeks in the books. We've seen a lot of teams we're going to talk about, of course. We got some great games to mention, but it's 7 weeks just like that. Time flies by when you're having fun.
Yeah, it is, and you got some teams that are going up and you got some teams that are sort of spiraling downward, so it's going to be interesting as we go through this to see which teams are going in which direction.
And I think, Jay, I could at least speak for myself. The importance right now is playing your best brand of football, the final third of the season. And we saw that start of the final third of the season last week. We got some games to catch you guys all up on. Again, Mike Dewan here with Jay Simmons. Zach Sinelli's our producer. Region Football Weekly. Let's get this thing started. One of the games on the Region Sports Network, a shocker over there, I'd say, at the Purple Palace. Two teams that ideally are going to meet in the regional championship in Class 5A. We don't look too far ahead, but a Duneland matchup, the Maryville Pirates, who are highly ranked on our list, played another team that's pretty highly ranked on our list, the Valparaiso Vikings. Maryville wins that one 35-7, a 7-7 game from what I saw pretty early, but things kind of got away. You were at that game.
Yes, I
was. You were
was
on the call. Talk to me about that, because when I saw that score come through, that's usually a game that kind of comes down to the final play, and I know maybe both teams might be in a different spot. Valparaiso's they've got some turnovers, specifically on that defensive side, but we kind of expect more of a bounce-back game coming from them after that Crown Point loss.
Well, when you lose 41-7 the week before, it's really, do you bounce back or not? Maryville bounced back after they lost to Crown Point. They lost 46-13. But it just seemed like, when going into that game, you had them ranked 4 and 5 in the RSN poll. I thought, man, this is going to be a great game.
Sure.
All of a sudden, you come out, you see a couple punches thrown. It's 7-7 after the first two drives. And then all of a sudden, the wheels on the Viking bus just came off, and it just seemed like, at first I thought, man, this is going to be 35-42 type of game, because both teams, like I said, went down the first two drives, scored, boom. Then all of a sudden, Maryville responds 14-7, and Valpo punted on their next 4 consecutive drives in the first half, and it just seemed like all of a sudden the wheels are coming off. Valpo's defense just didn't seem to be clicking at all, and then the same thing. Well, conversely, though, Maryville played great defense, caused a lot of 3-and-outs, and they capitalized on all those 3-and-outs. It was 28-7 at the end of the half, and then you're just like going, okay, Valpo's getting the ball at the start of the second half. Get a quick score,
seen them
boom,
come back before,
yeah,
right?
And then you think, all right, 28-7, they come back, the same thing. They just couldn't get out of their own way. They seemed flat, so they just seemed like the spark wasn't there, like I saw in previous games. The first couple games that I did the Andrain game week 2 when they won 28-21. You saw that spark there, that excitement. Those guys were fired up. They were on the road against Maryville, but still, you should have that spark coming out at halftime. And Coach Marshall usually, gives a good speech at halftime. They come out fired up. Just seemed flat. I mean, it just like
right.
I don't know. So they got a couple weeks, like we talked about, this Week 8. So they got a couple weeks before they get into the playoffs, but they've got to right the ship, and they got to do it right now. So you're just seeing Valpo's going to be on the downturn. I think Maryville's on the upturn.
And you talked about kind of, again, the Maryville defense, but I want to go into that offense. But first and foremost, that game, going into it, it was kind of a party over there at Maryville. It was their homecoming. Yes. I saw ABC 7 News took a trip out there Friday morning. They did the Friday flyover at Maryville High School with all the homecoming festivities, and that's a lot. Homecoming week is tough. It's a fun week for the home team, but, and in my experience, it throws you off everything. And again, for Valparaiso, typically you schedule your homecoming game against a team that, hey, you might be able to hopefully come out with the W. And Valparaiso, that usually kind of adds, in their case, that adds some momentum to them. But for Maryville, I want to say kind of the question coming into some of these games, we know their defense is good. Their quarterback play has been kind of inconsistent. And Jordan Sanders, I got here, 7 of 12, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. His best game of the day. They obviously were able to run the football as well. J.Q. Johnson, Cam Jordan. Talk me a little bit more as we before we move into this next game. Maryville opening up their passing offense, obviously that's a product of the run game, but doing that moving forward, you mentioned they're on the upswing. That's big moving forward for the Pirates.
Yeah, Jordan Sanders looked great. And, when I first saw the stats, I'd seen him in week 2 or week 1 against Andran. And I'm thinking, boy, this guy's really good. Junior coming out, first-time start, had a really nice game, threw some nice deep balls. And then all of a sudden I look at the stats, and I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's only played in 3 games. So he really came back from where he was week 1 to now week 7. He seems to have bounced back. He seemed really confident back there. And again, you're right. The running game really opened up the passing game for the Pirates. I mean, you had J.Q. Johnson, 132 rushes, 2 TDs, and the backup running back had a great game as well. So, I mean, you didn't miss a step with 1 or 2 for the running backs. And that offensive line of Maryville, boy, did they get a great push. They were down 4 or 5 yards. J.Q. Johnson wasn't getting touched until he was 5-6 yards downfield. They just did a great job. I think I named those guys the blue-collar players of the week. That offensive line was just physically dominant last week.
Rightfully so. Maryville, again, rolled against Valparaiso 35-7 in favor of the Pirates. A big win from there over there at the Purple Palace. Another Duneland matchup we had on the Region Sports Network, a game that I was at, a great one, a matter of fact. Chesterton they came back from 16-3 deficit, came back and spoiled Lake Central's homecoming. Chesterton won that one 17-16, and a game that I was at, again, this was a game that Lake Central controlled for almost 3 full quarters. They 16-3 early in that third quarter. Cam Reddick impressed me a lot. I think he was our blue collar player of the game, a junior quarterback over there with a very bright future. But Chesterton, they're relatively a one-dimensional offense, and being down 16-3 is not great. But Andrew Govia, I don't know if you've seen any of Chesterton this year.
I have not.
But Andrew Govia, I mean, they're banged up at quarterback a little bit. They had to work in C.J. Perez, who's kind of been getting under his footing over these past few games, but I think one player for Chesterton touched the ball in the second half. It was Wildcat for. I don't want to give away any. I mean, they might want teams to know, hey, try and stop this kid.
Yes, here we come.
Govia, they put him in the Wildcat formation. They burn the clock, and again, it works if you're up 16-3, but come back down 16-3. Chesterton now 5-2. A little bit of surprise there so far this season.
And then they're in that sort of that common ground with a lot of other teams in the Duneland Conference. They have 2 losses, so they're fighting for second and third place right there. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Chesterton Trojans shake out just in the Duneland, and then see, because they got a couple tough road games or home games. They've got Crown Point's coming to them, and then at Maryville. So that's not an easy way to go into the playoffs.
Hey, they definitely have a chance to play spoiler. We're going to talk about that 1v potential 7 matchup later on this show. For Lake Central, I feel like, again, this is a very talented team with a great coach on their sideline, but this is kind of something where we've seen in seasons past, it's maybe 1 step forward for a week and 2 steps back. This was a tough pill to swallow. Another tough homecoming loss. I was at their previous one against Michigan City. I don't know how much you remember that one. Came down to the wire, the final play of the game. Controversial, whatever you may call it. Another tough pill to swallow for Lake Central, and again, hoping to kind of rebound because, again, sectional is right around the corner.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one to come back from, and then you got Maryville on the schedule this week, so it's a real tough one to come back from. You've got to really keep that locker room upbeat and spirited, because a loss like that can really hurt a team, with the morale. And, that's where you got to pick up the tempo and practice and, just keep those guys focused on what's coming up, not what happened in the past.
You got to just move forward. Again, sectional is right around the corner. Other Duneland games that happened, Crown Point won over LaPorte, Michigan City. Portage, a game that we could eventually talk about, but Portage got a big win there, 9-7. Against that, kind of rounding out the Duneland play. Very interesting game we're going to talk about maybe after the fact, because we got Portage on our schedule for this slate of games. So we got one of the newfound rivalries here in Northwest Indiana. The Battle of Hammond. Morton gets a big win going to Hammond Central, the Wolves' Den, they might call it over there. 42-14. Morton finally getting back on track, as we kind of mentioned on previous shows. Their conference is small, and it's definitely maybe top-heavy. Again, the Great Lakes Conference of 3 with East Chicago. That is still a team looking to find its footing, and Hammond Central, that is, they don't want to say it, but they might be playing second fiddle to Morton right now. But it's kind of hills and valleys. Morton gets the win here. Holland Harris, 16 of 17, 220 yards, 4 total touchdowns. LeBron Hill, an eventual D1 player, 6 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. Deshaun Woods as well. going over, playing his former team, but who he's at Morton now. Again, 10 carries, 133 yards, 2 touchdowns. Morton, good to see them kind of get back in the win column, starting to play some good football. Again, in that Class 5A with Hammond Central, they can give Maryville a run for their money in that sectional maybe.
Yeah, and look at Hammond Morton's schedule coming up. They've got Hobart and they've got East Chicago, so they got at least one good test before they get into the playoffs. And then you look at Hammond Central, they got East Chicago Central, and then they've got Hanover. So both of these teams got one tester on the schedule to sort of give them a measuring stick of where they are at and when it comes to playoff time.
That Hobart game is going to be interesting. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Moving forward into the NCC part of this last week's kind of recap, an interesting one between Lowell and Kankakee Valley, of course. Fun coaching matchup there. You got Kirk Kennedy and Keith Kilmer. Of course, Kirk Kennedy formerly at Lowell, now at Kankakee Valley. But Lowell gets a big win there, 27-14. That game was played at the Inferno. Lowell, these are two teams that could run the football, but KV's kind of down spiraled since that 2-0 start. Now 5th straight loss. A team that was ranked pretty highly on an Enigenberg Home Improvement Top 10. Lowell had 2 100-yard rushers in Brody Kolwinski and Colton Scott. Lowell sneakily now 2-2 in the conference. Again, it might be a little bit out of reach with what Hanover's doing, but 3-4 on the year. Again, Lowell's kind of bounced back after a rough start to the season.
And it seems like that's a characteristic of Keith Kilmer's team. They always seem to start out a little slow, and I think that's to give that offensive line time to gel because they love to run the ball. And once that offensive line gets going, then all of a sudden they start to pick up that speed, and then they always do the 8-minute drive in the fourth quarter, and it's just wears that defense out, and that's where they're really good in that fourth quarter, especially if the opposing's defense has been out there a while. And then, like I said, they really pick up momentum as they get closer and closer to playoff time.
First win, I believe, on that new turf as well at the Inferno. Again, Lowell took care of business against Kankakee 27-14 and a big NCC matchup rounding off with this segment. A game that was for a title. Hanover Central 21, Hobart 14 at the Brickyard. A game that we expected to be good, and of course a lot of implications going into this game. Again, to see Hanover Central do what they do now 2 years in, at least 2 titles, hoping to make it 2 outright titles. It has been nothing short of magical of what Brian Parker and the rest of his guys have done over there.
Yeah, and you look at it on the season, they're averaging 35 points offensively, giving up 15. And you sort of saw the schedule coming into this game. You really had Hanover Central. You're probably thinking maybe 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, walk away with this game. But Hobart, man, after have stringing of 5 wins in a row, really battled good in that one. They always play Maryville and Chesterton in the first game in weeks 1 and 2, and then it seems like that helps build their schedule from there. You look at Lowell bouncing back this week in a big win, but yet last week Hobart beat them 42-7. So all of a sudden now it was a big game. Hobart came up just a little bit short, and Dylan Bowen came up with the big interception on that last drive with just time expiring. I mean, I think Hanover had to do one take a knee, and that was it. So big finish right there.
No kidding. Dylan Bowen, of course, the brother of Drake Bowen, but he's making a name for himself. Also had 14 tackles, becoming one of the top tacklers in the region. There's going to be on that peak performer statistical leaderboard coming out around 7 o'clock. Hanover Central, they're loaded. Caden Verrett's one of the best running backs in the area. Tommy Bonner coming home, playing the quarterback position, doing a great job. Rocco Bartolomeo also scored in this game. But rounding out with this for Hobart, obviously you mentioned that tough start. They had 9 points in 2 games, an offense that they're relatively young, but that's kind of the key. They are young, and they got a lot of guys playing up. Of course, a first-year head coach as well, never easy. Hobart still had a 4-3 record. Of course, with the Hobart faithful, they want to win titles. They want to win the conference. But this is still a young team without a promise going forward. And again, sectional play around the corner. Who knows? You could meet up with Hanover again for a game with much bigger stakes. You can get your revenge there.
Yeah, definitely. And they're going to meet somewhere along the line. They're both in sectional 17.
Yeah, that new 4A sectional. We'll talk about sectional matchups maybe a little bit on the show as we kind of close up with Hanover, moving up to 4A. NCC, at least a share. They control their fate now. They got a good game coming up here, but Hanover Central, again, the new kids on the block, no more in the NCC. We're going to step aside here on Region Football Weekly. Mike Dewan with Jay Simmons coming to you live from the Center Bank Studio. We'll step aside on the Region Sports Network, the only game in town.
When life keeps you busy and you can't get to the store, shop online with Strachan Van Til To Go. Our to-go service is easy to use. Register using your rewards account information, fill your virtual cart, and choose delivery or pickup. Once your order is in, our own Strachan Van Til team preps your order with care. With our to-go service, you can earn reward points and save time and money with our online coupons and weekly ad prices. Life made simple, shopping made easy. For more information or to sign up, visit shop.strachanvantil.com.
Hi, I'm Crowd Company's Lantern Man. For years, I've helped your family and friends save on their car insurance. And now I've returned to rescue you from high prices. Whether you have a perfect driving record or a not-so-perfect record. Follow me to the Crowd Agency for immediate and affordable coverage. I'm your insurance superhero. Crowd Company's insurance professionals. Highland, Merrillville, and Michigan City.
Thinking about what to do after high school? Consider a career with Boilermakers Local 374. As a Boilermaker apprentice, you'll earn while you learn. We offer excellent wages and benefits, and as part of our no-cost hands-on apprenticeship program, you'll learn from the best in state-of-the-art training centers and on the job. Become a union Boilermaker and get on your way to a great career. Find out more, visit www.local374.org or call 219-845-1000.
Old Man Winter is just around the corner, and that means temperatures will soon begin to drop. And a region winter is not the time to be left out in the cold. The professionals at Economy Electric Heating and Cooling can tune up that old furnace or install a new unit that can last for years. Your family deserves to stay comfortable this winter, and with 24/7 emergency service, comfort is just a phone call away. Economy Electric Heating and Cooling, 219-923-4441. Or for more info, the website is forajobdoneright.com.
Tech Checking Plus from Tech Credit Union offers everything you'd expect from a checking account. Plus, you'll earn one of their best dividend rates for maintaining a higher account balance. Currently, 4.85% annual percentage yield. No need to choose between easy access to funds or earning a better dividend. Tech Checking Plus gives you both. Visit techcu.org, contact any branch, or call 800-276-8324 to learn more. Tech Credit Union is federally insured by the NCUA. Rates may change without notice. Welcome back, everybody. Mike DeWan here with the Region Sports Network, Region Football Weekly. Alongside me is Jay Simmons, coming to you live from the Center Bank studio of the Region Sports Network. We are now moving on to this week's Home Improvement Top 10, presented by our friends at Enigenberg Exteriors. And we're going to start with the outside looking in, a group of teams that was pretty... It was a party last week. There were about 6 teams in that outside looking in, and after a few of those teams, again, the outside looking in, kind of a spot where, hey, can you prove it to us for this week? A lot of those teams could not say that last week. Now, I think we cut that number in half. Now only 3 teams on our outside looking in. We talked about the Morton Governors, what they've done in these past few weeks. River Forest is a team still kind of knocking. Again, suffered a tough loss, an overtime loss to Boone Grove a few weeks ago, as well as a 3-point loss to Griffith. They're trying to work their way back in our top 10. And Portage, surprising 9-7 victory. Again, a team that was started out 2-0, lost their next 4 games, obviously getting a big win against Michigan City, re-enters their name in the chat.
Yeah, and I think, the Roy Richards well-coached team, they're going to battle every week and they're going to be well-prepared. So it's going to be interesting to see how they finish out the season. Again, it's a young team, sort of like, we talked about Griffith, being a young team. And, so it's, I think it's a growing process for them, and we'll see how they finish it out. But I think they're going to be coming in strong here.
It has definitely been a rotating door within that outside looking in. But now we get into the top 10, a list that is still filled with kind of your usual suspects, but a little bit of rotating doors still, and where teams are located. So to start, we could kind of group these two together, Crown Point and Hanover Central in 1 and 2 respectively. 2 teams that now control their fate within their conference, kind of the cream of the crop so far.
Yeah, you're talking about Crown Point. Boy, they are just rolling. They they haven't looked back yet. I don't know how to say it. They're clicking on all cylinders,
Sure.
So they're the team to stop right now
Right.
in I would say the northern half of the state.
Right.
And so they're rolling, and then you got Hanover. A little scare last week, so that may rattle the cages a little bit, and it may spark a little more energy coming out this week for practice for Hanover in the 2 spot.
Yeah, they play a top 10 team on their list come this Friday. Number 3 is Maryville. Jay mentioned a team that had a great win last week against Valparaiso, running and passing the football, as well as playing stout defense. But now we get into a little bit of a shake-up. Some usual suspects, but the team that Maryville beat, Valparaiso, drops to the 6th spot, and Griffith and Wheeler jump them. Griffith now at the 4 spot at 7-0. Wheeler jumping up into the top 5. And again, I think we kind of mentioned this beforehand, but I think it was said within the article, but this is something that, okay, you look at Valparaiso, a hypothetical matchup against Wheeler, against Griffith, and Valparaiso, they probably have the upper hand. They're the 5A school. They have arguably double the roster, but with what Griffith and Wheeler is doing at their respective class levels, as well as, of course, head-to-head kind of plays a part in this, but with stipulations and all that stuff. Again, who's playing up and who's whatever that may be. But what Griffith and Wheeler are doing within their conference, within their level of competition, we got to give them flowers. Again, Valparaiso, a tough loss to Maryville last week, almost uncharacteristic in our opinion.
Yeah, and we talked about teams moving up, moving down. Well, Valparaiso, they're moving down, and it just seems like they've got to right the ship. We just said that a minute ago. They lost to Crown Point the week before. Now they lose to Maryville, so they've got to put the pieces back together if they want to stay in the top 10. And then you got 2 teams, at 2 and 3A that are playing really well right now. And you got, the Griffith Panthers, and you got the Wheeler, and they are both playing really solid football right now. Both of them have a test this week, so it's going to be interesting to see how they fare out. And then week 9,
who knows, right?
It's going to be a really fun week 9 for those 2 teams.
No doubt about it. Griffith especially, too. I mean, we talk about Wheeler a lot. We'll have them on the Region Sports Network as we've had them for a past few games. But Griffith was a team coming into the year that we know they were super young last year, but you're very close with Phil Mason. You even got a haircut with him last year a few times.
I did.
So you're very close to them, and you understand kind of what they're doing over there. Is this surprising? Against 7-0, now one of 2 teams in the area with an undefeated record. Kudos to Griffith, what they've done over there, but we'd expect them to be a lot better. But 7-0, again, they're running through their conference and division so far, and those non-conference games they played earlier in the year, they smoked those teams as well. So talk to me about the Griffith Panthers, and again, rounding out this season.
Well, the thing was, I talked to Coach Mason over the course of last year quite a bit, and he said, and I did, I not because I wanted to, but because of scheduling, and I do some middle school and JV officiating, and I ended up doing 2 of their games, and they were blowouts, and so I'm like, Coach, why don't you take some of these guys up to the varsity level? And he's there after the game, and he's talking to his kids, and I'm walking off field, and I bump into him, and I say, hey, why don't you take these guys? He goes, hey, I want to teach these kids how to win first before I move sophomores up to the varsity, and then still lose. I want to stay with these guys at this level. Let's have fun this year, and then let's have even more fun next year. Got that group up to juniors, and they only had 1 senior on the team last year. Now you've got about a dozen or so this year. So they're moving in the right direction, and Coach Mason doing a great job.
No doubt about it. Again, a sophomore at quarterback, still a relatively young team they got over there. Some pieces that are going to be at the boneyard for some years to come, but obviously they're doing some great things so far this season. Again, to round out that, Griffith is at our 4 spot now, Wheeler at the 5 spot, and Valparaiso drops a few spots to the 6 spot. Moving on 7 to 10. A little bit of rotating door. Chesterton moves its way up after the big win against Lake Central. They competed very well against the team right above them, and Valparaiso lost that game by 1. They got a test coming up this week, but a lot to see so far from that run-heavy Chesterton team that, again, 5-2, did not really expect that. Mark Peterson, longtime head coach. They know what they're good at, running the football. Andrew Govia, as well as, again, whatever quarterback they have back there. Again, Brady McCormick did a great job before he was injured. CJ Perez, the new guy, stepping in there, and they got a great defense over there as well. 5-2. Again, did not really expect that. Yeah,
it seems like they're coming together. Their only losses, Michigan City 20-0 in week 3, and then the Valparaiso in a very close overtime game, 22-21. So they're a program that's really turned it around as well from last year to this year. So and then they got a chance to end up in the top third
Right.
of the Duneland Conference. And I think that's one of the things, as a coach, that's one of the things you always look at. Hey, where do we finish in conference? What's our overall record? We check a couple boxes off before we get to sectionals and then go from there.
They have a chance to really make some noise, as you mentioned before. They have a tough end of their schedule, but nonetheless, a great 7-game start so far for the Chesterton Trojans. At the 8 spot, 8 and 9, we can kind of group together Hobart and Andrean. Hobart at 8, Andrean at 9. Hobart, we mentioned that tough loss to Hanover Central. The NCC outright title slipping away from their fingers once again, but still a very young team with some solid senior and junior pieces that can kind of provide them and be of service to them come the playoff time. And Andrean, always doing what they do, scheduling up, playing Bishop Chatard. Not really, again, we talked about that head-to-head kind of aspect in terms of this ranking, and Hobart beat Andrean not too long ago. It's tough to penalize Andrean for playing Bishop Chatard, but talk to me about that. Again, Hobart, we mentioned, they're a very young team still. Some senior leadership at Andrean, of course, that two-way school, not a two-way schedule. They actually got Chatard pretty early, scored.
Yeah,
I want to say they were up 7-0, maybe even 14-0.
But they were up
something like
14-7 at halftime. Remember looking at that
Right.
score going, we got a shot here to beat them.
Right.
And you look at Andrean's schedule, they've got Maryville,
It's impressive.
Week 1, they've got another tough game week 2, and then they got Chatard, and it's just like, wow, that's really loading up the schedule. And I talked to Coach Skinner about that, and he goes, we love it. I go, don't you want to go to the AD office and say,
time.
I do. And he goes, what? I do the scheduling for our football team. So I'm just like, wow, that's incredible. The way you schedule up, and then you come to the playoff time, you're really ready to go on, from sectionals to possibly regionals when you play that many tough schools.
You hit it on the nail. It gets these kids ready. I want to say their whole schedule, I don't think they played anybody at or below the 3A class. And again, they're in 2A class. So once they get to that sectional, they're hoping, again, there's a lot of talented teams within that class, but they're hoping, hey, we've played teams that are bigger and maybe better, who knows, with teams that are, again, expected to beat us, and we've hung in there with them. So, again, Hobart at the 8 spot, Andrean at the 9 spot, and at the 10 spot, Boone Grove, as you mentioned, a team that has been in this list a few times, hoping to win their side of the GSSC. A great quarterback over there, Mark Rowland. A team, new facility this year, a new culture over there, to say the least, but becoming a threat in that conference. So, again, the outside looking in, as we mentioned, River Forest, Morton, and Portage. And the home improvement top 10 list goes as follows. From 10 to 1, Boone Grove, Andrean, Hobart, Chesterton, Valparaiso, Wheeler, Griffith, Maryville, Hanover Central, and the top dog, Crown Point. That's it for the top 10 so far. Again, the home improvement top 10 presented by Enigenberg Exteriors. We're going to step aside for one last segment, looking at the games to come tomorrow night here on the Region Sports Network, as well as throughout the region. We'll step aside again on the Region Sports Network, the only game in town.
Have you checked out Centier Bank's student checking account? This no-fee checking account is perfect for students and teens ages 14 to 24 and comes with all the features you need to succeed, such as a debit card, digital banking, and automatic deposit. Centier Bank can help you start establishing good spending habits today for your better tomorrow. For more information, visit Centier.com/student-checking or visit your local branch. If you are under the age of 18, your parent or guardian must also sign on the Centier student checking account. At the age of 25, your account will automatically convert to the Centier checking account. You must deposit $25 to open this account. This account is not eligible for overdraft advantage. Member FDIC.
Four Seasons Mechanical proudly serves Northwest Indiana, providing quality, reasonably priced, reliable service. With a quality and comfort guarantee, the professionals at Four Seasons Mechanical offer a wide range of services in heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Whether it's residential or commercial, Four Seasons Mechanical is there 24/7. To find out more, the website is fourseasonsmechanical.com or give them a call at 219-756-7020. Four Seasons Mechanical, your indoor air quality specialist.
Earn while you learn from the best hands in the business. The Bricklayers Allied Craft Workers for Indiana Kentucky Apprenticeship. That's right, this is a paid apprenticeship.
I'm getting an education while learning a trade and getting paid for it.
The thing that surprised me the most about this apprenticeship program is the respect I've received after the proper time and training.
Classes start soon, so apply now. There are training centers throughout Indiana and Kentucky. We are the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers for Indiana Kentucky Apprenticeship, the best hands in the business.
Flip the switch, a light turns on. Press the button, machines and instruments come to life. Touch the screen, communicate with the world. Simple tasks, guaranteed results, every second of every day. That's the power of power. And that's the power brought to you by the Nika Contractors and Electrical Workers of Local 531.
We love home internet from T-Mobile. Oh, now Mesh boosts Wi-Fi all over your home. Taking a class in your attic, that dead spot is gone. Stream ballet in your man cave, learn to paint on your lawn.
It's glorious.
And now on the road, you can take T-Mobile Wi-Fi with you. Hey, stay connected and watch what you'll do.
Welcome back, everybody, to Region Football Weekly. Mike DeWan here with the Region Sports Network. Alongside me is Jay Simmons. Zach Sinelli is our producer today, coming to you live from the Center Bank studio. We're here, Region Football Weekly. Now we are looking at the games. We talked about Week 7 and the content leading up to this week, but now it is Week 8. We got a great slate of games coming up here. A few games on the Region Sports Network. We're going to start with some games outside of that. Our 8th-ranked Hobart Brickies will travel to the Mansion to take on the Morton Governors, a game that was an absolute shootout last year. Alongside that, I remember that game being ketchup versus mustard. Hobart wore their all yellows. I don't know if they're going to do it again. Morton wore their all red, so that was a fun color rush game. But besides that, 65-38 last year. Morton got out in front pretty early. Hobart responded, putting up 65 points. Again, two teams coming off, one coming off a loss. Hobart, of course, a lot riding into that game against Hanover Central, and Morton, an emotional rivalry game. They've been playing good football as of late. A game to look out to for sure. Again, non-conference for both squads, but these are two teams playing some solid opponents, again, getting ready for playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. And, Hobart coming off that loss last week, it's maybe an emotional letdown a little bit, but, as a staff and as a player, you hung with Hanover, and you got to be feeling, okay, here we come. We're coming into Morton. Let's play the same game, and then let's see what comes out of it. And I think Hobart's feeling pretty good. They're number 8 in our RSN poll. So if you were to ask me who was going to win this game, I'm going to go with Hobart. Maybe the same score, but the other side, switch it around a little bit. It would be Hobart 21, Morton 14.
Yeah, one thing for Morton,
it's going to be a little bit lower scoring. I'm not saying 63 to 50 or something.
I'm sure the defensive coordinators would like that for Morton. Again, they got the star power over there. Hobart, I think, kind of going in this game, might have a more balanced team across the board. Should be interesting to see for Morton how to get your playmakers the ball in space, your Deshaun Woods players, your LeBron Hill type of players, Freddie Brown, Holland Harris, of course, the quarterback that's a little bit more experience, as well as most of this Morton roster. Again, it might be a little bit more star power versus a team that is a little bit more balanced. Want to definitely keep our eyes on, again, two teams hoping to make some damage in their respective classes. Moving on, this time a top 10 matchup in the NCC. The number 9 Andrean 59ers will travel to Cedar Lake to take on number 2, the Hanover Central Wildcats. Hanover Central, a chance to clinch the NCC outright. As we mentioned, the magic they have absolutely caused, again, under the Brian Parker era over there, and just what they've done in their short history. Andrean, again, a tested matchup last week against Bishop Chatard, showing they could hang with the best of the best. Obviously, the game got away from them a little bit, but Andrean now, of course, they're still in the mix. They only have, I believe, one loss in the NCC. They want to try and get a piece of the title themselves. They're trying to play spoiler, a game to look out for nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a lot closer than people anticipate. I think this is an Andrean team that's a little bit underrated in that number 9 spot. They've got some losses against some really good teams coming into this round right here in this game in Week 8. I think they're peaking at the right time. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but I think it's going to be a little bit closer than what people think.
Yeah, you look on paper, a 3-4 record for the Niners. It's like, oh, okay, maybe but their worst loss is arguably Hobart, at Hobart. So it's like, you look at that, and it's like, and Hobart's a pretty good football team.
Yes.
They lost to, again, Chittard. They lost to Valparaiso, and they lost to Maryville. A nice string of losses. Of course, Andrean wants to turn those into wins, but they have a huge chance
Yes.
to play spoiler come tomorrow night. Hanover Central, a great program, of course. Then they want to take that title for themselves. Andrean hoping to say otherwise. Another top 10 matchup, number 7 Chesterton versus Crown Point. It is a top 10 matchup. We've seen a couple of these before, though. Crown Point takes these top 10 matchups that come about and reigns on that whole parade.
Yes, they do, and we talked about them when we said the number 1 team, they're rolling, they're clicking on all cylinders. I just don't see Chesterton slowing them down. As good as they played last week against Lake Central, and as good as they played against Portage the week before, Crown Point is just unstoppable right now. And the way the staff has got these guys fired up, the way they're playing offensively. You know, and I talked about when Valpo was playing Crown Point, you know, they stuffed the line of scrimmage, they took away the run game. Well, then all of a sudden you come to the play-action pass, you throw the ball down the field. Then all of a sudden the second half they go, okay, we're going to take away the pass. Then all of a sudden the run game for Crown Point just blew up. So whatever you take away, they're going to go to the other side. So when a defense focuses on one aspect of that offense, the coaching staff can get a good sense of that as the game goes on, and then they switch, and then they move on, and they're so effective in all aspects of the game offensively as well as defensively, and that 3-5 defense causes havoc for that offensive line, and that's really where Chesterton's going to have to focus on, is that offensive line to get that run game going. You talked about it when they ran the Wildcat most of the time. They're going to have to be a little bit more diversified than that, because that 3-5 is, you just don't know which guy's coming. You know, and they usually rush 4 or 5 every play, so you got to figure out there's going to be 2 linebackers blitzing on every play. Where is he coming from? So Chesterton's going to have their work cut out for him.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen C.J. I saw last week he threw the football a little bit in the first half, but that second half was all Andrew Govia running the football. Chesterton, a pretty big offensive line, but they may have their hands full. Again, they're going to hopefully try to limit possessions for that high-potent Crown Point offense that, again, those starters barely make their way into the second half. I want to say they've only trailed for a little bit over a minute this year, so they have just been fantastic. Chesterton hoping to, again, a lot of teams have tried so far, and all of them have fallen. Chesterton hoping to at least make this one competitive, and who knows, again, 5-2 Chesterton, they've played some good football as of late, a little bit more, again, one-dimensional, maybe offensively, but it's still a stout defense, and again, of course, as all these are, one to look out for over there at Crown Point. Now, 2 games on the Region Sports Network, one of them, and this one you will be at tomorrow,
Yes,
Jay
I
Simmons,
will.
Whiting at Wheeler. Wheeler ranked number 5th in our home improvement top 10, presented by Enigenberg Exteriors. Whiting is, again, first-year head coach over there. It's been a little bit of rough sledding as of late. And before we get into the game, speaking on behalf of Region Sports Network, I want to thank head coach John Jolly as well as everybody else over there at Whiting High School for letting us come out. Region Sports on the road, had a great prep dinner. Team moms, everybody that was involved, they fed us well, they treated us well over there.
Nice.
So it was fantastic over there. But now they shift their focus onto Wheeler. A game where, again, maybe 2 teams in 2 different spots, 2 younger head coaches, at least within the program. Nick Tessa, the reigning GSSC Coach of the Year, in his second year with the Bearcats. Things are clicking on all cylinders for them. Whiting hoping to spoil the party. And again, this is the time of the season when Wheeler kind of heats up and gets ready to go.
Well, and you know, I'm looking here at some of the Whiting score as the season progressed, and it seems like the wheels weren't ready for Coach Jolly at the beginning of the season, but all of a sudden now you see they're getting a little bit closer. You know, they lost to Calumet in overtime 36-38. Last week they lost to Boone Grove 47-28. So it seems like the scores are getting a little bit closer. They got to get that defense a little bit more solid. Sure. But you got they're scoring a lot of points in those last couple games. And then you got Austin White. He's completed 56 passes on 104 attempts, 838 yards. You know, he's got 8 touchdown passes, and to go with that, he's got 88 carries, 517 yards. and he's got 7 touchdowns. So in scoring-wise for the Whiting Oilers, it seems like Austin White is the man that's really going to have to carry the load, and he's accounted for 15 touchdowns in 7 weeks. So he's really got to step it up, and against a very, very aggressive Wheeler defense.
Yeah, Austin White, the straw that stirs the drink over there for the Oilers going into this game. Yeah, I mean, 2 solid quarterbacks, and Wheeler has one as well over there. Caleb Klimzak, who's one of the leading passers in the area, as well as they got a lot of fantastic aerial threats for Wheeler, and Nick Testa, the former wide receiver. They like to throw the football over there a little bit. They could run the football as well. Jaden Ortiz is their fantastic running back, but Wheeler's when you look at them, it's hard to believe they're a two-way school because their offensive scheme, I mean, it is kind of next level and kind of what you see at these more pass-heavy schools.
Well, you look at their quarterback, Klimzak. He's 88 for 147, 1,449 yards, and sort of shooting some emails back and forth with Coach Testa today, and he said, we don't look for the big play, but when it appears, when the chance appears, we go for it. We like to be consistent. We like to run the ball. We like to keep defenses off balance. But if they got a shot or if they see a weakness in the defense, they're going to attack it.
Yeah, it's a big matchup in the GSSC, to say the least. And again, talking with Nick Testa going into the season, this was a team that found their swagger at the end of the season last year. I think they found it so far, 5-2 now. Good game nonetheless over there. Again, that'll be on the Region Sports Network with the video broadcast. And our second game on the Region Sports Network, a Duneland matchup. 2 teams we talked about previously in the show, but Portage will travel to our 6th-ranked Valparaiso Vikings. Portage coming off of arguably a surprising win against a very talented Michigan City roster, a 9-7 victory. Valparaiso, 2 tough losses back-to-back. What should we see here, Jay? Again, Roy Richards on that Portage sideline, another great coach over there for Valparaiso with Bill Marshall. 2 teams in maybe different spots of the season so far. Valparaiso obviously still maybe the team that we see is performing at a better level with the 6th spot, but Portage, after a big win, momentum's riding high over there.
Yeah, I think the momentum bus on each of these sides is going in opposite directions. I think momentum-wise, Portage is getting it, and it seems like Valparaiso, it's like you pick up a handful of sand and it's all slipping away from them, and so they've got to get that ship righted. But Portage seems to be a young team that is maturing as the season progresses, and I think this is going to be another very close game. And like I said, I think the Whiting-Wheeler game is going to be very close. It's going to be an exciting. I am not going to give a prediction on that game because I am doing it.
Correct. I couldn't agree more. But going more into this game, Portage has not beaten Valpo since 2016, hoping to break that streak. But for Valparaiso, again, you were at that game last week. I'm not asking for a prediction, but what do they need to kind of fix after these previous 2 weeks? The defense has, the offense scored 14 points, just 14 points in the last 2. They scored 20 or more in every game before then, and on average this season, they've given up 26.9 points per game. So it's, again, the Duneland Conference has a little bit to say about that. Again, that play, it's not easy, as well as, of course, facing 2 top teams in the Duneland over these past 2 weeks, but you saw Valparaiso last week, again, a game that was kind of neck and neck in that first quarter, and then things got away from them. So what should we see from the Vikings this
I think for tomorrow? Them to get going in the right direction, one is they've got to solidify that offensive line play. That offensive line it looks like Berta's running into a wall every time he's carrying the ball, and they really love to run the ball. Valparaiso, they like to be time-consuming with the ball, so that offensive line that's a big group. There's no guy that misses a meal in that group, and they just seem to be not sustaining their blocks, and that's where they got to be physically dominant on that offensive line. And defensively, it seems like instead of them being the aggressor, the offense is bringing it to them instead of the other way around, and that's what they got to do. They've got to pick up the tempo defensively, maybe sell out a little bit more, blitz a guy here and there. They seem to be sitting a standard defense. They got to sell out a little bit more to make up for maybe some missing pieces, like you said, because it's a young defense, so they've got to be a little bit more aggressive, I think, defensively, and get Portage on their heels a little bit, because Portage's offense is clicking pretty good. I mean, they only won 9-7, so their defense is doing a real good job as well. So they've got to get Portage on their heels.
We can only wait and see, and you could wait and see as well on the Region Sports Network. Again, that will be a video broadcast, and after those go, again, we'll talk about some other stuff we got going on, but sectionals, again, the drawing comes out Sunday. That's just like that. Obviously, we talked about those teams in our top 10. Again, Crown Point's a team to look out for in 6A. We got a 4A sectional. That's just about every team locally. We got, Hobart and Hanover in that. 5A as well. Valparaiso, Maryville, that dynamic, as well as the Hammond schools. Griffith in the 3A class. Andrean in the 2A class. Wheeler as well.
Wheeler, Boone
what are you kind of excited to see maybe coming out of that? Again, the pairings are, I think, this Sunday. So obviously we got some teams to look out for, but going to be interesting to see.
Well, I want to see, where like you said, the top 10 come out. I want to see where Crown Point's going to end up going. I'm excited, because I live in Griffith, so I'm excited to see where Griffith's going to be.
Too.
And then, also for the Wheeler Bobcats, Bearcats or Bearcats? Bearcats. All right, Bearcats come out as well, and those two teams really, and I'm glad you put me down to a lower level. I've been only doing 5 and 6A games for the last couple of years. I'm excited to see that a 2 and 3A schools play, and it's because I'm used to seeing not anybody playing both ways, and I look forward to that tomorrow. Yeah, I'm looking forward. That's one thing I'm really looking forward to when doing that Whiting Wheeler game, is to see how the guys handle being out on the field a lot, because I'm sure you're going to have 5 and 6 guys from both schools playing both ways. So I'm excited for that. But I think we've got it seems like we were always top heavy in 5A and 6A on teams that are really good. But now all of a sudden the 2 and 3 and 4As are picking the pace up. So we've got a lot of teams that could make some noise as we move forward into the playoffs.
I love it, and we kind of harp about it on this show. It's a testament to the play of the GSSC, a conference that has grown tremendously in our opinions. The competition is better, and the players, there's a lot of marquee players at these smaller schools that, hey, if we were to bring up this conference 5-10 years ago, the public opinion on it might be a little bit different than where it is today.
Well, I think the huge thing for this conference was Hanover had overgrown it and had moved on to a bigger conference, and they had been so dominant. Now all of a sudden you got the 2 and 3A schools playing the right level of football, and I think that really has now exploded. Now more schools are excited about, hey, we've got a chance now. Where Hanover was sort of dominant in that conference for a few years, and now all of a sudden, and that helps get kids out. When you win, you get more excited about it, and then all of a sudden it's a lot easier to walk down the hallway. When you're the football coach goes, you're coming out. I saw you in gym class the other day. You're coming out. Exactly. So all of a sudden the kids are like, oh, you want me on the team? We're winning? Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, you're right.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm definitely rooting for those smaller schools as well. But, hey, we got to get through this Friday first. And, again, we got 2 games on the Region Sports Network, Whiting at Wheeler. 2 games, both video broadcasts as well, Whiting at Wheeler, as well as Portage at our 6th-ranked Valparaiso Vikings. We also have the RSN Zone coming back tomorrow night. I will be here in the Center Bank studio along with the 2 Dougs, Doug Nelson and Doug Ashenball. Again, a show that kind of highlights all the games as they're going on, more specifically our games, but also the games going on throughout the region. We also have the Strachan Van Til hometown scoreboard tomorrow, the score courtesy of our friends at Strachan Van Til, going on throughout the night, live updates. Tech Tailgate show tomorrow before RSN Zone, the wrap-up show as well. I'll be your guy probably for most of that, so that's going to be fun regardless. But this about wraps it up here for the show. A few more things to at least plug. Saturday, if there's any athletes watching, former Crown Point Junior Bulldogs, we're doing a special thing on Saturday. We're going to be broadcasting the 3 Crown Point Junior Bulldogs Super Bowl games from little, middle, and big divisions. That'll be fun on Saturday. And we also have the Beating the Brickies series, new article coming out on Saturday. This one hits home for me. I wrote this one. This is about my dad's team, the Munster. 1986 beat Hobart in the regional championship, ended their regional streak, which was about 7, I think, at that time. 7 regional championships in a row, something slight, right, Jay?
Yeah, well, I know I was part of them winning more sectionals when I played in high school.
Right, and again, you could kind of talk about this series again, because kind of when you see Beating the Brickies, it's like, oh, it's a jab at Hobart, and it's not. I mean, we're writing this series because, again, they were so good, and there's some local teams, again, that are able to kind of retell the story, and teams that still celebrate. I mean, a lot the common trend with the series of stories are coming out is it snapped a streak. I mean, we released the Lowell one last week by Brian Waddle, and I think that was kind of the end of their dynasty, but there was a Chesterton story not too long ago, and Hobart had a 71-game home winning streak. It's like, again, not too bad, 71 games at the Bricky Bowl, and Chesterton, of course, a team that still remembers that story. But again, you were kind of around that time with Hobart. Again, their dominance in the 80s, 70s, and 90s. I mean, it was truly unreal what they were doing back then.
And you know what? It's like a compliment, I feel, to Hobart, because you're talking about, you know, a win here or a win there. You win, you know, Hobart wins 70 in a row, and all of a sudden you get somebody wins. Well, the guys that won that game I can remember almost every play of when I played against Hobart in the sectionals, and we lost, and I still remember that. I still remember, you know, the game like it was played, you know, about a month ago.
Sure. Who's counting, right?
Yeah, but
maybe 2
months ago. Yeah, leather helmets, you know, no face masks.
Right.
But I still remember, and it was one of those things where when you played Hobart, you know, you remember that game. Whether it was, you know, week 1 or a sectional game or whatever game it was, you always remember playing Hobart regardless of the outcome. And 99.9% of the time it was in Hobart's favor.
Yeah, and again, it's paying homage to Hobart, but also paying homage to the teams that were part of that minuscule percent. And again, this one hits home, again, writing about, interviewing my dad, interviewing my former coach, Leroy Marsh, some other Munster guys, Bill Melby, a couple other names in there. That'll come out this Saturday, our newest thing of Beating the Brickies, as well as plenty of other articles that you can go read on regionsports.com. But that will about do it for us here for the Region Football Weekly. Again, the games we got going on tomorrow. We have Whiting at Wheeler and Portage at Valparaiso. We have RSN Zone coming back. We also have the Tech Tailgate show before it and the RSN wrap-up show after it. Then Saturday, we have the Crown Point Junior Bulldogs, 3 Super Bowls going on, a fun-filled weekend, and all a common theme. It's just football.
Yeah, it's football for another couple months. And, you know, here's the one thing I want to ask you guys when you guys are doing the RSN Zone is, can you save me a couple pieces of squeegee pizza?
I'll see what I could do. Squeegee's Langos, they all treat us all well over here. I'll see what I could do. We got some hungry guys in here, but I'll see what we can do. But again, for Jay Simmons, Zach Sinelli is our producer, Chris Ramirez, our executive producer, Rich Castillo, our operations manager, and all the people involved with RSN. I'm Mike Dewan. This has been Region Football Weekly. Good night, everybody. Let's get ready for Friday. But for Jay Simmons, Mike Dewan here at the Region Sports Network, the only game in town.